Hello, Startup Vision. I'm Reza Malekzadeh. I'm a general partner at Partech, and I'm also the president of the French Tech in San Francisco. And I spend my time between San Francisco and Paris as we have offices on both sides of the Atlantic.
Hello, Reza. Thank you so much for being here on Startup Vision today to share your thoughts and advice with the startup community. Partech is a global investment platform led by ex-entrepreneurs, and maybe that explains why you're so close to your startups. You're based, as you said, in Silicon Valley, and you're very much involved with your portfolio at this time. Can you explain to us how you coach them?
So generally speaking, we have a model where we believe that we need to provide some help and guidance, or at least share some of our experiences with the portfolio companies. So in general, that's been in our DNA. And I think at a time like this, where not many entrepreneurs have lived through such a crisis before, and to be quite fair, most investors haven't either, it's important to spend time with the entrepreneurs to be able to think with them, brainstorm with them, share some experiences or lessons that we have learned elsewhere, and then ultimately help them make better decisions to guide their companies. Some of us have seen previous crises in 2001 or 2008 and seen some of the effects that that had on the technology sector. And for what it's worth, we can share some of that. For what it's worth, we can share downturns that we've seen, ways that companies have addressed some of those issues. And then ultimately, of course, the entrepreneurs will make their own decisions, but they can try to draw on some of the experiences that we can share with them.
Well, this shows how important the relationship between VCs and the startups are. It's not only about raising money, it's about a partnership, as you explained. Can you tell us a little bit more about as a VC, what you do concretely with your portfolio?
Sure. So you're correct. I'm one to believe that it's far more than just signing a check for the entrepreneurs. And obviously entrepreneurs have a lot of different avenues to get funding, and even among VCs have a choice to make. So I think the important thing is to make sure that there is also a human connection in the mix here. Ultimately, it is a human business. And so we try to bring some of what we can see elsewhere in our portfolio or in our past lives to the table. I spent the vast majority of my career as an operator in product marketing and go-to-market segments. I've been lucky to be part of failed companies and successful companies. And so as I invest in early stage entrepreneurs and projects, I can share some of that. I can share the past experiences I've seen. I also try to be focused in the areas where I had relevant experience. So enterprise software being a critical one, so that again, what I've lived through can be relevant. So we can participate as entrepreneurs see fit. The entrepreneur can call on us when he or she needs something, ask questions in good and bad times, and then we will be there to try to bring our perspective and our past experiences, share recipes, share things we've seen that have worked or not, and make it happen for them. We're not going to operate for them. We're never going to be micromanaging them, because ultimately they know their business far better than we will ever know their business. But we can help them with asking some questions or providing some guidance.
So your portfolio is very impressive with startups like Ornica, Mano Mano, Lifeend, Virgin, Hyperloop, to name a few. And I even saw that some of your startups are still raising money, like Kaizo raised money in March. Can you tell us how you see the investment for the next 12 months for you, Partech, and in general?
Sure. So yes, we're very fortunate at Partech to have a very nice diversified portfolio, and some of our companies are doing extremely well, even in these tougher times. Right now, our first priority is to help the companies that might struggle. And so we've taken upon ourselves to spend a lot of time looking at who's doing well, who's not doing well, what the impact of the crisis has been on the companies, and provide them with help, but also intermediate funding as required. We're definitely going to be there to do that. in this concept or in this process, some of our companies had embarked on funding rounds before the crisis really hit or the lockdowns were announced. And the majority of those have continued in their processes. You'll actually see some more announcement happen through this week of things that were well embarked and actually did close. So that's super positive. And it's good to see that the case of good companies progressing well, the new investors didn't stop what they were doing and continued in the process. So clearly, we believe this is, a short-term crisis. It will have long-lasting impact, but a good company will continue to be good. And generally, good companies have a lot of resilience. So what we're seeing now is this continued activity for the startups in our portfolio. We encourage entrepreneurs to consider that cash is king. Like, be very careful because there will be a slowdown in the pace of new fundings. What we are doing to provide to our portfolio, pretty much everyone else is doing. So that amount of time, attention, and money will obviously not be available for other external rounds. So entrepreneurs need to be very careful, need to make sure that they preserve cash as much as possible, and that if they have opportunities to move forward, they do it. Clearly, we also warn them against, what I would call vulture capitalists, people who try to use a crisis to really, hit companies hard. And we think that it's obviously unfair. And if an entrepreneur has been good enough in preserving cash and don't need to do an emergency negative round, they should definitely hold up and not do that.
And what sectors are likely to emerge or being reinforced by this crisis?
So what we're seeing, in our portfolio and a little bit around us is clearly there's an emergence of e-commerce, companies that have the ability to continue selling and have the right logistical process behind. You mentioned Mano Mano. Mano Mano is doing really well and they're continuing to perform. We see also the continued good performance of companies in online education. And we're again lucky to have a few in our portfolio like Open Sesame or Lalilo or Cartable in France. And these companies have been able to grow their business recently. So these types of activities are continuing to do well, and we're seeing that happen. There is continued interest around cybersecurity because clearly people need to protect their environments, and working from home has introduced new security issues. So that seems to be doing well as well. So these are some of the high level things. One of our companies, actually Fox Intelligence, published recently a survey through their methods of what's going up, what's going down. It's publicly available. So people who are interested, I recommend they go and find this index survey that Fox Intelligence has done around what they are finding and how people are consuming during these times.
So being global like Partech must be a real advantage at this time.
I'm not sure if it's a real advantage or not, because the crisis is hitting everywhere. When you have a local issue, being global brings you hedging in that other areas might not have the problem. But here, lockdowns are across the US, across Europe, across Israel. So it is really happening. I think the interesting thing is to see that there are different government and local responses to what is going on, and that you can then learn how different entrepreneurs are dealing with that and share those best practices with other people. Clearly what the French government is doing is very different than what the Israeli government is doing or the American government in terms of helping the startups. So we can learn from different types of experiences here. We can have a more global perspective and share it, but unfortunately, no area right now is really out of a lockdown or not touched by the crisis.
Thank you so much, Reza, for being with us once again. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. And this was a positive message. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.